Today, we're going to talk about not just how to be more confident, but how to put confidence in context, and crucially, how to respond when somebody helpfully tells you that to be successful, you just need to have more confidence in yourself. Thanks for that. Before we get started, subscribe to my channel so you'll get career tips for success every week via that notification bell, because we release one every week that's going to help you take your career forward. So confidence starts as an issue for almost every coaching client I've ever had and at lots of events where I speak, but not always in the ways you'd imagine. Surprisingly, it's not so much that people lack confidence, it's often that we don't respond to it well when we see it in certain groups. Additionally, blaming a lack of confidence actually allows companies to overlook certain people because they don't exhibit confidence in the ways we might expect. You know, the person who talks at all the meetings, who volunteers to lead the presentation, person who may bullishly take credit for other people's ideas. So if we continue to primarily define confidence in terms of those go-get-em traits, well, we all lose out. Those behaviors, while initially perhaps inspirational, are ultimately hugely destructive. Instead, rethinking confidence has changed the game for so many of my clients who go on to negotiate big jobs and take on projects that would have scared them in the past and stand up for themselves and the people they respect with so much more skill than they ever thought possible. And if you stay to the end, you'll find out why, when it comes to being more confident, it may be time for you to go through a rebrand. So let's get to it. Appreciating that confidence comes in many guises is the first step. So when I wrote Love Your C Word, I discovered that a wide body of research shows that people we often label as underconfident, that is, introverts or people from more communal cultures, and women certainly, are as ambitious and driven as the people we tend to traditionally associate with confidence, the extroverted, the able-bodied, often white guys, and people from socioeconomically better off backgrounds. However, when other groups just demonstrate confidence in ways that they want to be recognized, they're often labeled as aggressive, angry, or other judgmental labels. In my example of organizations, I have yet to hear a senior white man ever be described as feisty, my favorite word. No, he's described as being passionate and committed to the cause. Feisty is what you call a small, troublesome, yet ineffective animal, something that makes a lot of noise but has no real power. So the first step to becoming more confident yourself is to acknowledge that confidence comes in many shapes and sizes, and it may not look like you expect, which we're going to be discussing here. The second way to develop more confidence is to recognize that it is so not a blanket term. It's far better for you to compartmentalize the exact skills in which you lack confidence. People often say to me, I would love more confidence. But if they unpeel what exactly they're missing, it's often something really specific, like talking up in meetings or leading presentations. Let's be honest, you don't lack confidence in every single interaction you have across the workplace, just in certain settings. Unpeel that onion even further and you can get really specific. It isn't small meetings of 2 or 3 people or even people in your network. It's often with certain groups of stakeholders or a specific level or type of audience where you lack a little bit of confidence. That unpeeling is so vital because it helps you recognize that your lack of confidence it's recognizing that you have a lack of exposure to a certain group, and knowing what experiences you're missing is the only way that you're going to be able to plug that exact gap. Because as you can see, there's a big difference between saying, I'm not a confident person, and the reality of being someone who could use more experience presenting to groups of 10 or more external clients at one single time. That's really specific, which means you can work with it. That description is so much far easier than you to pinpoint where you're going wrong, which is the first step in getting the exposure you need. So if you recognize what I'm talking about, give me a thumbs up in the comments below. and let me know how potentially you've been described when you exhibit confidence. Some of the ways I've been described include highly strung or ball breaker, in addition to your run-of-the-mill misogyny like bossy, pushy, or my ever-present feisty. So lastly, redefine confidence for yourself. When I interviewed 3 leaders for Love Your C Word, it became clear that we have a really narrow definition of what we expect confidence to look like. When I asked people about those behaviors, they often used fairly stereotypical descriptions like pushing your idea out in front of others or variations on looking out for number one. It is not surprising that so many people don't own that version of confidence if this is what we largely think it should look like. It is totally time for a rebrand as society, and certainly leaders I've worked with know that that type of confidence is ultimately destructive and very unattractive. A bigger part of confidence, but one we actually overlook, is how much confidence is wrapped up in the belief that the system will do right by us, that things are fair and equal. Given we live in a very imperfect world where some types of people get ahead faster than others, it shouldn't be surprising if certain groups of people appear to have less confidence. But that's actually less likely to do with how they feel about themselves and much more to do with the trust they feel in the system, which is an important distinction. The truth is that if there are too few examples of people like them who got to the top, then that is what their lacking in confidence is. But perhaps they're just actually more adaptively realistic about their chances of success, given the reality of underrepresentation. Instead, our definitions and the behaviors we expect must widen in the 21st century. For example, the first person who asks on their team for work flexibility is often making a risky move because they'll be judged by others. Instead, we should judge them as confident for asking. Similarly, the person who's newly in a wheelchair who requests his favorite restaurant provide a ramp so he can get up the stairs is himself being very confident. Or the Black man who advocates for greater racial pay transparency isn't being ungrateful for his promotion. He is being confident about his role and his worth. What I find is that when people redefine or even rebrand themselves with these versions of confidence, they can own the terms so much better. Confidence shouldn't feel like a problem you need to fix. Instead, it's about the questions we ask and how we interpret the responses we get. If these topics sound like something you'd like for your audience, book a call with me using the details in the description below to see how we can make these ideas work for your group. And if this video resonated with you, then click that share button. If every one of you watching this video shares it with a group of like-minded friends, well, collectively, we might all start getting closer to redefining confidence for the better. Now, I've got a whole playlist dedicated to competence versus confidence, which center around the themes that arose from writing Love Your C Word. So please check out that playlist if this topic interested you. Plus, I'd also recommend checking out a video on imposter syndrome, which often feels like a part of what you need for that confidence boost. So thanks for joining my mission to redefine confidence as we know it. And I'm going to look forward to seeing our collective results.